Yes, sir. Ready when you are. All right. Hey guys, can I have your attention, please? Everybody? If you can hear me, wave. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here for the intro talk and the Q&A session. Giving our intro talk today is Diego Villaseñor. Diego started practicing at the Quantum School of Zen in 2011 down in the Orlando Zen Center. He lived in the Orlando Zen Center for 5 years where he became a Dharma teacher. In 2022, he moved up to the Providence Zen Center and became a senior Dharma teacher. He now lives in Providence and works as a data analyst. I almost said an analyst. And answering questions today online is Tony Sager. Tony is a Bodhisattva teacher. He began practicing with Zen Master Seung Sahn in '78 while in college at Brown University. Tony lived and worked at a number of the Sangha Zen centers for many years, both in the U.S. and in Europe, and had been a fully ordained monk for 21 years. He now lives in New Mexico with his girlfriend Randy, where he runs our Sangha's Albuquerque Open Sky Zen group and works as a psychotherapist. So again, thank you both for being here today.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on this chilly November morning. I started living in Zen centers as I've been reflecting on it for kind of the majority of my adult life. As David mentioned, I started practicing back in my sophomore, junior year of college. I don't really remember. And if I'm terribly honest with myself, I think the main reason I started practicing is I thought the robes looked really cool and maybe I'd be important if I got some robes. Careful what you wish for is kind of the lesson there at the end of the day. But shortly after kind of starting this practice in college, after graduating, I spent a year living with a roommate before finally moving into the Orlando Zen Center, where I spent 5 or 6 years of my life. The only reason I moved out of it is because I was engaged with a significant other and we decided to take that step and move in with each other. And that didn't quite work out. And so kind of that failure led me to move up here to the Providence Zen Center, which is where I've been living since most of my time up here in New England. I start by saying this just to kind of give some context, because a year ago this month in November, I moved out of the Providence Zen Center. And this wasn't like any other time that I had moved out of a Zen center, which really only happened once before in my life. I wasn't moving in with someone to try and start a life. About a year ago this past November, I was possibly at the lowest point in my life. I was terribly depressed. I was very overworked. I was deeply burnt out. And I had no real balance on how to kind of manage that despite being in the Zen Center, which was the prime kind of situation for me to do that. And if I reflect back on kind of how I was feeling a year ago, really what comes so profoundly is I just felt overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed with my life. I felt overwhelmed with the suffering of this world. I felt overwhelmed with my work. I just felt overwhelmed. And kind of the very nature of our practice is, without pushing anything away or hanging on to anything, we look at what comes up in our meditation. And looking at that all the time, it was a lot to digest, and it was very difficult. And so I'm not clear on my motivation. Maybe it was some fear. Maybe it was some hope. But I felt like I should take some time, find a place of my own, have this experience, just kind of focus on my life a little bit and try and find some real balance. And so that's what I did. A year ago, November, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment located right kind of by downtown Providence, where I've been for the past year. And at first, it was really kind of quite fun. This is my first time having a place of my own. Wow, I can hang up whatever art I want. I can pick out furniture. I get to have taste in furniture now? How exciting. You're telling me I get a private kitchen? Woohoo! What a time to be alive. And so it was quite exciting at first. Just being in that new experience and trying to be able to define a space for myself. But kind of as that went on, I was finding that, I can't really say that my depression is getting better. I can't really say that I'm feeling less overwhelmed. And I really can't say that I'm any happier. In fact, I think maybe I'm starting to feel a little more lonely, kind of being here after some time. And that was a very weird thing to experience. Because what we do in our practice, and what we do truly in any kind of regular practice, is very, very simple. And this is what I was doing in my many years of living in a Zen center. We're practicing waking up to our true self, and then using that to help this suffering world. So, what does that mean? When we talk about waking up to our true self, what we're talking about is waking up to just that. When I hit the floor, there's just this instantaneous moment for all of us where we go, perceiving the sound. The mind and the moment become one. And not just my mind, all of us. My mind, your mind, any mice crawling around in the walls, all the minds. Exact same thing in that moment. This thing has a lot of words. We might call it don't know mind, Buddha nature. If you want to be dramatic and like the early Christians, you might call it the face of God. But it's really quite simple, but quite profound. It's a moment where we get to experience this world that is not dependent on just our thinking. It is not dependent on our likes or our dislikes. And we're really able to align ourselves with this. Oh, here I am. The floor is brown. I can hear the furnace running. Okay. And that's what we root ourselves in as a practice. And that's what I was rooting myself in for so long. But we don't just root ourselves in it. We learn to incorporate it into our lives. So first we wake up and try and connect with this place before our thinking. Come back. And then what do we do with it? We try and help this world in whatever way that means. I say this like they're two things, but they're really not. In our practice of constantly coming back to this moment, when we are able to root ourselves here and wake up to it, helping comes very naturally out of it. You don't have to think about it. If you're walking behind someone and they start to trip, you instinctively know to go and try and catch them and help them up. There's no thought required in that. It's just, situation, action. Exact same thing, emerging at the same time. No problem. And the great benefit of doing this practice, and this practice is really kind of the root of all great wisdom traditions, is by doing it over and over and over, we're able to take our suffering, take our experience, and be able to digest it into a different form of knowing, what some people call wisdom, although I'm only 33, I don't really have any of that quite yet. But we're able to take it and digest it into something that's meaningful and useful for our lives and the people that we interact with. And what it did on top of that was it kind of just aligns us with our lives. It aligns us with this moment, the people in it, and kind of this world that we inhabit, even when that world is a lot of suffering. So I knew all this. I was practicing all of this for the majority of my adult life. And yet, after moving out, I felt more disconnected from my life. I felt more out of alignment. I felt my regular practice more difficult to maintain. And in some ways, it kind of exemplified the suffering I was going through. How can I be out of alignment with my life? I've been doing this for so long. Come on, man. Get your shit together. You know this. You've been doing it. Just keep doing it. And yet, it couldn't connect. My friendships didn't feel as meaningful. My work didn't feel as meaningful. The nice fancy poster I got to perfectly complement both my rug and my couch no longer felt as meaningful. And I felt very alone. And in this aloneness that existed for about 5 or 6 months, this provided me with a very new insight into something that I was familiar with, but maybe haven't connected with as before. I'm going to take a quick pause here and just explain the different ways that we know things, because that's important for this part. And actually, I'll borrow from the Greeks, because I think the Greeks put it quite well. The Greeks, and if you read kind of the old, very old wisdom traditions, and you'll find this in all wisdom traditions actually, but I like the way the Greeks described it the best. They describe kind of 2 ways of knowing something. There is an intellectual knowing of something. You have knowledge of something. Oh, okay, I know the facts, I know the history, I have an intellectual understanding of kind of how things are and how things work. But they also propose that there was another kind of knowledge that we can get. A knowledge that is maybe more helpful and important to us as humans. And they called this gnosis, G-N-O-S-O-S. And it's knowledge that comes from deep familiarity with something, not dependent on your intellectual understanding, but only dependent on how much can you really be present and really connect and relate to something and get it out that way. The best way I can describe this is, imagine, if you will, that you have been in a very deep, very loving, very intimate romantic relationship with someone for many, many, many years. And then you find out one day that this person is in witness protection. On the one hand, everything you thought you knew about them, their name, where they were born, maybe where they went to school and their history, all of that is totally false, wrong. You do not have any accurate intellectual knowledge about them. But to say that you don't know this person is entirely untrue. Because even though they're in witness protection and you have no idea what their real name is or what their actual history is, you still know them. You've been in love with them and they've been in love with you. You know the way they react to things. You know the way that they like and dislike and the way they function and flow. And that is the kind of knowledge that we're gaining from this kind of intimate practice of coming back to don't know, that very deep familiar knowledge that isn't based on our intellect. And so for me, kind of around the 6-month mark, I had this much more intimate knowledge of what it means to, in the Buddhist tradition, to take refuge. So in Buddhism, we say that we take refuge, and it's something that we do when we take 5 precepts. We choose to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the teacher, the teachings, and the community. Now, like any great wisdom tradition, this thing has maybe multiple understandings. You can understand it literally, you can maybe understand it intellectually, and you can also understand it spiritually. You know, what is the true Buddha we're taking refuge in? What is the true Dharma, the teachings we're taking refuge in, and so forth. But that's neither here nor there. What I found in this kind of deep aloneness was, what I'm feeling is this loss of I mean, I know I want to talk to myself, but not... I don't want to actually listen to myself, good Lord. Was this loss of what it meant to take refuge. I felt like, and I was on my own in kind of this world that was just overwhelming in its suffering. I remember feeling this particularly with the Charlie Kirk assassination and all the craziness that came after that afterwards. And kind of experiencing all this very deeply, it brought back home to me the importance of what it means to find refuge and to practice with community, with a teacher, and with the teachings. Because in Zen, we don't choose words flippantly. We're trying to find words to express something that's often kind of inexpressible. And I think that's especially true with refuge, especially when I look back at my experience. There's a lot of suffering in this world. And I found it to be deeply, deeply, deeply overwhelming. I still do, in some way. And on the one hand, it's true that everything is in a constant state of change. But that change also isn't necessarily random. Suffering often begets more suffering. And very few people just on their own can take that suffering and do what we do and turn it into some wisdom and compassion for ourselves, our lives, and this world. So in this midst of this world that is deeply, deeply suffering and gone crazy, refuge is really the best way that I can think of describing what we do here. All of us are coming into this room together as a community with these teachings and these teachers to find refuge from this constant bullshit we as humans put ourselves through all the time. And we're holding this place sacrosanct so that all of us together can take this suffering, process it, connect to our true selves, and try and transform it into something more helpful for everything and everyone involved. And it's so hard to do that on your own, as I quickly found out as I started to live on my own. And so this really is a treasure. The fact that we have this beautiful practice, where we have our beautiful Buddha, we have these beautiful rituals that we do, and we have a beautiful thing in just coming to understand something beyond ourselves. And we're doing something beautiful with it and preserving a place where anyone can come to try and work out what does it mean to be a human in this world of suffering. And I honestly don't know if we're ever going to alleviate the suffering of this world. You know, sentient beings are numberless. We vow to save them all, and so forth and so forth. I don't think we're ever going to get there. I don't even know if we're ever going to make it necessarily better, per se. But that just gives even more meaning to this refuge that we're doing, that we're taking here together, where all of us holding this together for anyone to come and connect with those things and work on those big questions. So in the midst of this loneliness and suffering, it brought forward this more experiential connection to what it means to take refuge in our practice. And that brought me back. And I remember when I came back, one of the first things I saw was David's smiling face and him going, "Oh, it's Diego, I got to stand up for this one." And the joy it brought to me to feel so welcomed back and embraced by our community and our teachings, it really did feel like coming home and taking refuge. So I encourage all of you, support our refuge that we're building here together. Come practice. Come work on your big questions. Come take the suffering of this world, and instead of using it to make more suffering, let's all turn it into something different. And then maybe we won't be able to overnight change anything. But here, doing this practice over and over and over, we can find some faith and refuge in that. So thank you all for showing up today. Thank you all for taking refuge with me. And I encourage all of you, if you have questions about your life, your practice, or suffering, please put them to Tony Sager, who is a wonderfully experienced teacher.